Okay. Here we go.
Okay.
We'll kind of kick it off. We'll kick it off here. Then as people come in, that's fine. We have obviously a few guests here at this point. Welcome, Michael. Welcome, Dean. Welcome, Louise, and others. My name is Ken Lambert. I'm the VP and the founder of North American Association of Sales Engineers. Thanks for joining us here for our forum, our Zoom forum. Today we're talking with Priz Guru. They'll be presenting some ideas and some concepts in a little thought leadership on solving problems and solving complex problems. So you can see their title here, Be a More Effective Problem Solver to Promote Your Product or Service. So I've known Priz Guru, Alex and Anatoly here for about a year, and we've talked a few times back and forth. They are on our website, on the association's website. Any member of NAASE gets a 20% discount off of their software subscription service, so keep that in mind. But I think that there is a lot of crossover between, and there should be, between being a sales engineer and solving problems, right? Again, there's solving problems is in the job title, specifically with many companies. If you are a sales engineer, we call them, right, solutions consultants. We call them solutions architects, all these things. The word solution is in the title, right? So a sales engineer needs to be able to solve complex problems. So today, this is, a little tangential maybe to I think what is out there, per se, especially for sales engineers or pre-sales and all that. But that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up and offer this. So on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Alex and Anatoly from Priz Guru, and then we will have a chance to do a Q&A towards the end of this. And if you would like to use the chat button, please use the chat feature at any point. So go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ken. And also, because we not that many people, will try to make it as interactive as possible. There's quite a few places where we can be interactive. So first of all, welcome and thank you for having us. We Priz Guru, and Priz Guru officially is called Priz Innovation Hub. That's the official title. The reality is that it's a problem-solving platform. First of all, it provides tools and so on. We'll go through some of them in this presentation and what is this for. Now, we always like to start with a quote, and in this particular case, the quote is from Lee Iacocca, is an American engineer. He's actually one of the people who introduced a Ford Mustang. We're continuously faced with a great opportunities brilliantly disguised in insolvable problems. This is the key that we're trying to solve with the problems, with the problem-solving platform. And realistically, instead of looking at the problems as problems that we need to solve, let's try to look at them as an opportunity. And every solved problem is an opportunity for us to improve and progress. So today we're going to be talking about being more effective problem solver to promote your business and services, as Ken already mentioned. Oops, wrong button. So first of all, we want to talk about the differences between salesperson, the traditional salesperson, and a sales engineer. And what we found in some of the definitions as well, the salesperson is really somebody who sells stuff in the store directly to the customer. If you think about it, he does everything to promote a store. He solves the problem for himself and for the store, right? While the sales engineer and this is from the official definition, the sales engineer sells product or services for a scientific or technical company and has both sales skills and technical knowledge. I would like to add more to that. Sales skills and technical knowledge often not enough, right? We need to be able to use these skills and technical knowledge to solve problems. So Sales engineer need to be a problem solver, and he solves problems for the customer versus for himself, right? Now, what we found in the last several years, there's a couple of big challenges in problem solving process overall. First of all, I'll go by example. When somebody is tasked by a problem that he needs to solve, the expectation is that it's going to be solved in one shot. People gather in the room, do some brainstorming session, and leave the room with a solution. That is almost never true. And whatever the solution is, if it's the case, if they're coming up with a solution, usually that solution is not so great, unfortunately. Now, this is the first challenge where we need to change people's mind and how people think, because problem solving is a continuous process that does require systematic work all the time. It's not, we'll deal with it when the problem comes. We need to deal with it all the time. Otherwise, we're not really solving problem. We just do patches. The second challenge is more psychological, is especially when we're talking about the bigger, more complex problems, more complex systems. We coming up with a solution. Even when we come up with the great solutions, the great solutions, as everybody says, and it is very, very true, that great solutions, they're usually easy to understand, easy to implement. These are the great solutions. But how people perceive them is, it's too good to be true. It cannot be that easy for this complexity of the problem, right? So we have some disconnect between complexity of the problem and complexity of the solution. And people see that as something wrong with the solution. They don't get something. They will accept much faster the problem, the complex solution, than a simple solution. Now, how do we solve that? These two challenges, and we solve that with paradigm shift. At least we will attempt to solve that with paradigm shift. And the paradigm shift is towards the problem solving. It's not some trial and error exercise or some one-shot thinking exercise. It's a science. It's a systematic approach, same as we learn in physics and then applying it at work and problem solving, same as we learn math and applying it in different places. It's a science, right? So in here, we want to go through some examples of what does it mean science. There are several rules and several tools that we can use to improve our ability to use that science. First example, or in this case, it's not even an example. It's more of a state of people's mind, and we want to ask the question: how do we make a decision, or how people make a decision, to do something or move with a product? And majority of people, probably almost 100% of people, will try to compare the gain versus the loss when they're making that decision. Right, so that would be the main driver. And statistically speaking, this is not our numbers, this is widely available statistics. People will worry much more about what they can lose as a result of a decision versus what they can gain out of it. So in a simple sentence, our fear of losing is stronger than the desire to acquire. Now, what does it mean? Yep, Ken, you wanted to?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we have a few more people on, including Pat.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining us. Pat's on our advisory board at the association, and he's a very seasoned industrial and manufacturing consultant. So I'm sure that's why he wanted to join us here today, talking about some of this here and how to actually solve problems and complex problems. I think that this slide is a great example of why the default solution in quotes is to do nothing. Is so like for a lot of people, when you're trying to whatever you're trying to offer or sell or whatever, the default is, in a lot of ways, a lot of times, we don't want to risk things getting worse, or, it's just that is kind of an apathy that I think is out there also.
Right. And so what does it mean to all of us, and especially for sales engineers? It means that instead of concentrating on what people can gain when they're making a decision to purchase a product or a service, we need to concentrate on the fact that there's nothing to lose as a result of that. Right? This is what we need to. This is the point that we need to get across. Now, once we reduce that fear, this fear of losing, then we can progress with the game much faster than anything else. Okay. Now, the next question I wanted to ask is, how do we make a choice? There's a lot of choices, and that's a great example of many beer tabs. How do we make a choice? Which one are we choosing? Which options are we going with? And the key here that there is no, an average human being is not capable of comparing more than two things at once effectively. What that means, if somebody says, hey, I made a choice, I chose one option out of 10, usually it's a compromise, nothing else, right? He will, maybe a brainstorming session in the best case scenario, but without using some sort of systematic approach, that is not a solvable problem. And for that, there is a tool that exists. It's a fairly known tool. It also exists in our platform, and it's called round-robin ranking. Well, the way that round-robin ranking works is by using a pairwise comparison. And what that means, we're comparing two options, all of these options in pair. We list them all, we create the pairs out of them, we compare them, and in this example, for example, option 2 with comparison to option 1, that's the one, let's say we choosing option 2 as a better option for us for that particular pair, option 1 gaining 1, option 2 gaining 0. And we're going through all of these pairs, pairs comparison. As a result, we're getting a sum of all of the ones and zeros that we collected. And the option that gained the more, that's the option that preferred by us all. Okay, it's a very simple tool, very straightforward, extremely powerful. One of these examples that a simple solution can be applied to a fairly complex problem. The next thing that we wanted to talk about is how do we even define what problem we need to solve? And officially, it's called a problem statement, right? But let's talk about the definition first of all. What is a problem? We like using the Cambridge Dictionary and the actual official definition of the problem. And the problem is a situation, person, or thing that needs attention and needs to be dealt with or solved. Great. So let's do a couple of examples, right? Your kid is ill. Is that a problem? Yeah, for sure. Your manager is ill. Well, most likely not a problem. Your project is stuck. Definitely a problem. Somebody else's project is stuck. Well, it is bad, but it's somebody else's problem, not mine, right? And so on. Your friend has invited you for a coffee. Is it a problem? Probably not. It's actually pretty fun. But changing context a little bit, with saying manager invited you for a cup of coffee, that could be a problem. And the late couple of weeks showed that. So another example is your friend has a birthday party tomorrow. Well, that depends really on a friend and if you're ready for that or not. So problem, what we wanted to show here is the problem depends on the context and depends on how it affects you as a person. So how do we get from failure to a problem? How do we even define a problem statement in the first place? And here we want to go by example. We have a flat tire. What is the problem here? and I'll give a second to think about it.
You can't
Or-
drive.
Right. So a lot of people will say the flat tire is the problem, where in reality it's a failure. Right? Flat tire is a failure. The problem is something else. Even some people will say air running out of tire. Well, it's a cause for a flat tire. That is not a problem. The problem is what it's causing, right? We cannot drive, we late to a meeting or something like that. We need to now spend more money to fix the tire. Potentially in the middle of desert, we don't have water, big problem. So how do I identify and even differentiate between a failure and a problem? There is a very simple rule. Failure is causing problems, right? And that's a great example of that. The other way to think about it is failure cannot be fixed while problem can be solved. Think about this tire, for example. There's a hole in the rubber, right? Doesn't matter if you glue it, if you patch it, the hole will stay there. It will be patched. You can solve the failure of air running out of the tire, but the tire will not ever return to the same state, right? So you can solve the problem of driving, you can't fix the actual hole in the tire. Same with another example of a broken leg, right? Somebody, God forbid, broke the leg. You can solve a problem of walking, running, having a normal life. The leg, the bone itself will never return to its original state, right? Even after healing. Okay. So to summarize, the way that we're trying to look at this, that the problem is not what you see, hear, or feel. The problem is what you should do as a result of what you see, hear, or feel. Now, here's an example of a riddle where we want to give a couple of seconds to look at this. Can you define the problem statement? What is the problem in this situation?
Alex, before you go further, can you spend like 5 seconds on the previous slide?
Of course.
What are you thinking about that, Pat, exactly?
Well, I was, that example for the deflated tire, that's a very good example of when you are in conversations actually with the customer, right? You most of the times, and that's maybe 8 out of 10, basically you are always talking about solving the problem, which might not be just like Alex said, it's none of the concern. That's not where we are going to spend so much time, effort, and resources, and so many man hours are. As long as we can basically, we don't have to fix the failure. As long as that problem can be solved, everybody is a winner in the room. But the problem
Exactly.
is when you get into that meeting, nobody's trying to solve the problem. We are all trying to fix the failure. That's the classic human example. That was, again, it resonated with me just a couple of days ago. It has actually happened.
Yeah, and I can give another example. I'm coming from software world, from SaaS world, for many years now, and I know some good product managers and not so good product managers. Good product managers, they listen very careful to the customers, what they say they want, and out of that, they're trying to extract what the problem that they're having.
Exactly.
Right, and in many cases, it's a lot of work to even extract that information out, but 99.99999% of cases, whatever the customer says, and we will talk about this, whatever customer says he wants, it's just the way he thinks how he can solve his problem. But it's our job to get to the bottom of what is the actual problem that we need to solve and potentially solve it in a different way.
I agree.
Cool. So coming back to this slide, to this little riddle, I'm sure that some people Some people seen that. But what would you say is the problem here? Right? Majority of people will say, well, the problem is that we need to use 3 numbers to sum up and create a 30 out of them. If you think about it, with this current situation, this problem is not solvable, period, right? Once we think about it in a different way, and we're actually saying that this is not solvable, and that is the problem statement, because of the simple fact that we have 6 odd numbers, and we create out of 3 odd numbers, we need to create an even number. That's impossible, right? That's just not ever going to work. What that means, once we put that problem statement in place, now we can think about the problem completely differently, right? And it means that we need to change one of the numbers from being odd to be even, right? And the only case in here that we can do is actually flip the 9 to a 6. Then it becomes a solvable problem. Another use case that I wanted to jump in is the root cause analysis, something that's used by many companies today. It's mostly a process rather than a tool. Many tools exist there to conduct root cause analysis, used for communication with customers when an incident happens. It has many different use cases, and the ideal use case is when we using the root cause analysis to find that next opportunity when something bad happens, when a problem occurs. Now, again, we'll start with a definition. What is a root cause? Now, traditional definition is that's a fundamental reason for the problem, right? This is great. That's a great definition, but it's not very helpful. It's a dead end. In many cases, it is a dead end. The more practical definition is a root cause is a source of a defect, such as if remove the defect is decreased or removed. Now, if we're looking at this from this perspective, again, it's a little bit different paradigm. Like we talked about shifting a paradigm. Now this becomes a helpful definition, something that we can do about it. Now, a little bit of concepts of how we using cause and effect chain, which is one of the tools that exist out there for root cause analysis, also exists in our platform. The main concept here is, first of all, to remember there's nothing that happens without a reason, right? The way that we analyze that, we going from a key disadvantage and asking the question why, answering the question why, all the way until we get to the key disadvantage, to that dead end that potentially interesting to know, not always helpful. And cause and effect chain, it's usually a diagram. It could be a tree. And the outcome of this this entire tool, first of all, we actually gaining stuff for ourselves. We gaining more knowledge about how the system works, right? We potentially finding root cause of both types, and we will talk about these both types in a moment. We can find a solution for a problem much quicker. Again, there is a process for that. When we generate the new ideas for opportunities and for how we're solving these problems. Now, another tool that I want to talk about is 5 whys. Again, very well-known tool for RCA. In our case, we actually call it 5+ why for various reasons. One of the reasons is, by definition, we're not trying to stop people at 5. Potentially it can continue way more than 5 steps. And also nobody said that you have to get all the way to the 5. That's a first rule. Another rule is, again, going back to the question, to the definition here, that we don't need to only deal with a dead end. We can deal with the intermediate reasons as well. And here's an example for that. I have a headache, right? So that's the failure. Let's assume that's a failure. We're asking question why. Let's say it's because of high blood pressure. Okay, great. Why is that happening? Because high salt concentration in the blood. Why is that happening? I love Irish breakfast. Well, there's nothing you can do about it. Why is that? Why is that a problem for me? Because I have stomach problems, right? And then why is that happening? My mom used to smoke when she was pregnant with me. Now, this can be potentially treated as a root cause, and it potentially is, but it is the dead end that we talked about. It is really useless for me right now. It could be very useful for future babies if we make sure that the mom's not smoking going forward when they're pregnant. That's not helpful for me, right? Now, instead, we can try and treat all of these reasons, all of these causes as root cause. And if you remember, every root cause is defined as if we remove it, the problem is solved, right? So if we treat the stomach problems as a root cause, maybe I can do something about it and go for surgery and treat it somehow. Okay, surgery sounds awful, don't want to go there. If we treat the Irish breakfast as a root cause, maybe I need to change the diet and eat differently. Okay, I don't want to do that. I love my Irish breakfast. What about high salt concentrations? Well, maybe it can be solved by drinking more water and so on. High blood pressure, I'm sure there's pills for that. If even this failure we treat it as a root cause, there's always painkillers, right? So instead of concentrating on one last traditionally thought of root cause, that dead end, we all of a sudden getting additional 5 different options of how we can solve the current problem for myself, for this headache. And the examples are endless. Now, these are 2 examples of how these 2 different tools, it's a cause and effect chain diagram on the left, and the 5+ Ys on the right. This is exactly how they work in our platform. This is a diagram. It could potentially grow very big. It's an interactive interface where we're building the diagram and we interacting and coming up with a solution. And that's the way to think about the system. And then the 5+ Ys, where we asking and answering the question why until we get to the fundamental root for the problem, which then changed the names for that a little bit, which is dead end, and then auxiliary root causes. And the auxiliary root causes, they're the ones that can help us to solve the problem right now, where the fundamental is something that can be helpful going forward. Now, here's a key question that we wanted to get to is, what does customer need? Right? A big question that every company asks themselves, and how do we get to that answer? Now, one important thing that we wanted to highlight here is the customer satisfaction is more than just a sale, way more than just a sale. It has a much bigger picture. The fact that the customer satisfaction, the fact that the customer is satisfied, that's what drives our technology development and evolution forward. Because of the simple fact, if the customer will not be happy with the product or service, he's not going to use it, he's not going to pay for it, eventually that product will die, and this whole trend to that direction potentially can die as well. Right, so it's not only about sales. Now, how do we define or how do we find even what customer wants or needs? Right? Traditionally, we just talked about this with Pat just raised this question, is traditionally we ask the customer, what do you need? Right? And many companies, especially startups, they doing that all the time. This is great, and they will get a lot of answers, but this is not very useful questions because customers usually don't know what they need. Right? The better question to ask is what keeps them busy? What are they doing at this particular moment? Right? Why is that? Because and we'll go through that because customers doesn't want to do what he already does today. And let's drive it by example. Let's say we're all driving a car. The car progressed quite a bit in the last 100 years. And the traditional old cars where we had a gearbox and the clutch pedal, the manual hard to move steering wheel, there was a lot of functionality on the driver, right? Again, gas, 3 different pedals, the gearbox that he needed to work with, steering wheel, and all the rest is kind of going down the chain of different components and functions until we get the actual movement of the car. Right. Over the years, companies came along and they changed this picture, and they said, you know what, clutch pedal, you don't need it anymore, right? You have an automatic gearbox. The gear in a modern cars today, it's in a lot of cars just a button, right? There's nothing else you need to do about that. Even a brake pedal, you don't need to press that hard. There's a booster for that. A steering wheel, the same picture. There's a booster for that. So what did happen today in this picture? We took away a lot of functionality, a lot of functions from the driver and gave it to something else. In this case, to the engine. The engine is supporting the boosters. The engine is supporting all kind of other components that enable the functionality and takes care of the functionality that the driver used to take care of, right? So in this case, clutch doesn't even exist. The switching gears and braking the car and steering, that became easier, but the function still the same, right? Nobody asked for automatic transmission ever. Everybody accepted it though. Now, if we put this on a graph, there's something called a functional rung. By the way, these kind of graphs, for some reason, it's a little bit slow on the computer. These kind of graphs, they called functional model. And functional model, one of the things that it allows us to do is calculate the functional rung. If we compare that basic old type of cars to the modern cars, we can see very clearly that a lot of functionality moved from the driver to the engine, right? And that kind of explains that why. Right, and we have this functionality as well in the platform. It allows to calculate. It calculates actually the functional rank automatically. There is something additional on top of that that's called a problematic rank when we're trying to find a problematic components in the system. So just to summarize, to satisfy a customer, we need to look at the system as, the customer works with the system usually to get a function back, but he does something to get the function back. To satisfy the customer, we need to take away this function of customer interacting with the system to get the function, but still get the function, right? And that means we can completely eliminate that function or move it to some other component, like the example with an engine that does a lot of work for us. So here we finally got to the Pre's Innovation Hub to summarize what it is about, right? And it consists of 2 major portions. There's a Pre's platform, where, how we like to call it, where the problems are solved. This is where the work is done. This is where we're managing the projects, the innovation projects, the problem-solving projects. It consists of, it's basically project management tool with creative thinking tool embedded, with self-documentation, automatic reporting collaborations that we have in there between the members of that project. In ideas management. Ideas management is very, very important, of course, because we work on a problem to generate all of these ideas to begin with. And how we like to call it, it's an integrated engineering environment. On the other hand, there is something called a pre-hub. This is where we making this work, enabling to make this work public. We allowing people to share it with the world or with their own organization, depends on the context of what they want. Get the feedback, potentially understand how valuable their solution is, learn from others, because one of the questions that our customers ask, give me examples, or where I can learn how to use different tools and so on. So that's one of the examples where we trying to solve our own problem with the pre-hub and by allowing people to publish their work. Also, it's a tool to be to show off your work, right? And every engineer, it kind of becomes part of their resume. And many companies today, as part of their interview process, they want to see how good problem solver you are. This becomes it becomes part of your resume. Same as GitHub in many different cases. In software companies, people asking for a GitHub link to see how well are you in a community, how well are you in coding. Here's a link. Go ahead and look at this. Same concept here. We allow to make this public and show off. And this is basically social media in some sort of way for problem solving, or for internal. If we're using it for organizations internally, then it becomes almost like a search engine for solved problems in the company. Here we're just providing a link in there since we're distributing that presentation. Couple of examples of from the platform, so we decided to go with some screenshots. So this is a typical view of a single project. Of course, it has the traditional tools for project management, like an overview, but every project we're treating is targeted to solve one particular problem. Tasks related to that, of course, problem statement is a very important piece of it. The creative thinking tools, we currently have 10 of them, as we've seen examples of 5 whys, or actually 5+ whys. The cosmic chain, we touched a little bit about functional modeling, round robin ranking, and of course the action preventing action. That's the tool to find customer needs. And there is more tools to come. Of course, ideas management. The entire work inside the project is targeted to generate ideas. So all of them, they land in the ideas manager. The ideas manager have the additional tools to help us to choose, to pick and choose which ideas we want to go take forward and generate the final solution, right? And of course, the report. Report is extremely important piece of information. It's basically an interaction between engineering team and the management, or sales engineer and their customer. That includes the entire history of the project. Who worked on what was the problem definition? What was the success criteria? Which tools used? What was the proposed solution? Who worked on it? Every little detail is in
Hey, Alex.
that report. Yes.
Sorry, if we have time, or I think we will have time, when you're kind of done with the slides or whatever, I'd love if you can pull up. I'd love to see a sample of one of these reports from your platform.
Of course, we'll do that.
Would be kind of cool to see, I think.
Absolutely, we'll do that in a moment. Some of the samples in here, and I'm almost done with the slides. Some of the samples here, the project overview. This is a little bit outdated. We have a little bit more functionality here, like attaching files to the project overview. But basically, that's the entire information that we're dumping as a, this is the task, this is the background of the whole project. This 3 steps problem statement, it's kind of, it's a process to help people to define the problem statement versus one big field that people need to fill in. Some of the examples of the tools that we have. Again, we've seen the cause and effect chain and 5 whys, but there's more tools like 9 windows and perception mapping. Perception mapping is actually unbelievably simple and strong tool to find blockers in the process. And then just a glimpse of a report, but we'll look at this in a moment. Ideas manager, that's basically a collection of all ideas in there. This is where we're writing and proposing a solution. And then of course the report that includes everything. And that's it for the presentation. Before I jump into the platform, since we do have a little bit of time, I want to stop for any questions.
No, that's a great recap there. And yeah, we can look at some of the, like I said, the report. I think would be cool to see what the kind of output is and what people might be able to use that as a sales engineer, even sharing a report to a client, right, or a prospect, after meeting with him a few times and trying to, come up with a solution. Before we really started this call, I was just talking to Alex and Anatoly, and Anatoly was mentioning, I think he, and we can hear from him for a minute, maybe. He teaches at a local university in Israel, and all engineers and engineering students. And he kind of made a nice comment there that they're all learning. These engineering students, they're all learning, chemistry and physics and calculus and all these statistics and all these things, but they're not learning how to think or kind of how to put it together almost. And I think that some of this is kind of learning how to actually go through the process of solving problems. You may know the mechanical engineering end of it, but maybe not putting the pieces together. Anatoly, you want to say anything about that, or?
Actually, you said everything. Yeah, we teach people chemistry, physics, mathematics. We don't teach it how to think, how to use this knowledge. And this is what I'm trying to teach students. They use this system, and the system helps them to think, to be focused on specific questions. Yeah, right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. If there is no other questions, I will jump into the platform. And again, this is a website. There's a lot of blogs. They kind of split into different themes related to tools, related to different processes, and so on. They just a glimpse of a GitHub itself. This is where projects are published, and this is how it looks. And when we're talking about what people worked on, for example, this is Anatoly's profile, and this is all his projects that he published, and we can get into each and every one of these projects and see in details how they look like, who worked on it, the problem statement, the tools that being used as part of that. Some of these tools, they more interactive, especially the cause and effect chain. If we have a very long diagram, then it can be useful to interact with it, the ideas that got generated, and the final solution. This is not the entire thing that is in the project we're publishing here. It's just a high-level pieces that we decided important to publish. For example, tasks are not here, of course, right? But it's also controllable by the user himself. Now, going into the platform, I think I'm already. Oh, no, I'm not logged in. But logging into the platform, of course, it's SaaS. It's a SaaS platform, and one of the things that we usually use for an example is this, right? So overview, the problem statement, and by the way, inside the overview, again, as I mentioned, there's There's files that we can attach and use it for whatever reason we want. The tasks that we have them here. Problem statement, and that's the process that I was talking about, defining the failure, what kind of disadvantages, and coming up with the actual problem statement. Success criteria is also extremely important, especially communicating with clients and or the managers. And that's the collection of problem-solving tools that we have, the all available here, and that's the additional one coming up soon available. Ideas manager, again, as we talked about, that's all the ideas that get generated anywhere in the process of the project. Of course, the final solution that we're proposing as engineers, and coming to the report. That's how a report looks like. This is basically in a PDF, exportable into a PDF format. And it has everything from who worked on it, what's the title, all the, starting from background, all the details, definition of problem statement, winning ideas. So if you remember, I mentioned about collection of ideas, and there is a way in a process that helps us to identify which ideas are going to be taken forward. So these are winning ideas, and the proposed solution, of course. But this is not at the end of it. All the creative thinking tools that are being used in the process, with all the details, who use them, what the outcome of these tools, which ideas get generated as part of that tool, and who used them, and so on. All of these details are here, including timestamps, and potentially we can extract even more information out of it. Okay, and after all these tools, there's a long list of tools. We have the summary of all the ideas, and of course the tasks that have been involved in it. So that's currently the overall report that exists.
Yeah, just one point. What we try to do is to eliminate emails and the PowerPoints during your work on the project. You don't need it at all. Everything is on the platform.
Right.
Right.
So we're not asking, people aren't saying, hey, can you email me that Excel spreadsheet, from 2020?
Exactly.
It all should be in this, right? Keeping it in the platform, the less things are going to be missed and just more efficient for everyone.
Exactly.
Right.
And especially in engineering teams or R&D departments, R&D teams, many times managers demand for reports.
Yes.
Send me a weekly report, and that weekly report is the most hateful thing that engineers can think about.
Right.
You don't need this anymore, right? That's one of the examples that we take in a function away, but the functionality is there.
Yeah.
The manager come in, and this is the ongoing, always updated report.
Right. And I guess, anyone, please, you can take yourself off mute, and love to hear your thoughts or questions, or just in general, how you're going about solving problems anyways in your job, even right now, aside from the stuff that we learned about today, or looked at. Going back to that platform, I think that publishing platform of, these are all of Anatoly's, that there, this is almost like a engineering or technical resume or CV or whatever of really getting into the weeds, I would call it, right? Getting into the details on what does this guy Anatoly actually know, right? Or what has he actually done? And actually seeing this, I think, is very cool. I assume, are there two different things? Can this be private and then you only send it to people with a link with that link, or is this like public, like anyone in the world can look at what Anatoly has done? Can you set it for different things?
So something very important to understand here, and I will spend a couple of minutes on that. In the problem solving and innovation world, secrecy and private IP information is extremely important, and
yes.
most our clients, they put a lot of effort on trying to figure out how we protect the information, right?
Yeah.
So the reason that we have this whole publishing process, because it is actually published in a completely separate system.
Mhm.
These are published, and then when you take it off, if you decide to unpublish it, it's actually deleted from that system completely.
Okay.
It doesn't exist there anymore. So the platform is a fully protected, encrypted. Nobody can use it. We can't use whatever you're doing in your projects. Nobody can. And then the publishing piece, that's actually public, and there's not all the information, some limited amount of information that sits in that different infrastructure, and that infrastructure alone and only that is used for GitHub. That's a very important piece to understand, that this separation actually solves the problem of PI and privacy, where we're saying it's your decision to publish and unpublish at any point in time. Everything else is kept as private as we can possibly make it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that was my kind of where I was going with it. I see all this stuff, and I like, let's say you're, working for Tesla or whatever on some battery issue or corrosion
Absolutely.
or whatever. I don't think Elon Musk wants this, all over the place. If they hire you to solve a problem, right? Yeah.
Right.
I want to add one more important thing. When you work with our platform and you generate idea, our platform help you to keep. This is a copyright of your idea. Sometimes you cannot make patent, but you have to prove that this is yours. And the platform is probably documenting every step which is done during work on the project. We've been talking to some lawyers. They all said this is a fingerprint of idea, and this is a copyright. So.
No, that makes sense. No, good point. So as we're kind of wrapping up here in a few minutes, I wanted to thank Alex for going through all that, and it's an interesting platform, and certainly take a look at it. Before we wrap up, anyone else who's on the call, any last comments or thoughts here for our guests?
What comment from my side, or maybe a suggestion.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a world of competition, so maybe something where you can have like a competitive landscape. Maybe you've kind of got that in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Quite nice to see, what are the competition doing and how you're going to beat them. Maybe not just on the solution side, but also on the sales side.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's a competition. You might have the best solution, but maybe they're going to beat you on something else. I don't know. Just an idea.
For sure. For sure. In a way, competition is, of course, good. It keeps us moving forward. Something to note on this part, as much as we could explore in this space, majority of tools that exist out there, they actually idea management tools. There's a lot of them. So what that means, they're saying, bring us the ideas and we will take it further. We will analyze them, we will evaluate them, we will help you with that process and take it further to the actual implementation, which is great. It's very useful, but we're trying to concentrate on how do you even get to the idea. So we start with a problem, getting to the idea, and this space is not covered. We could not find any tools out there that do that. The only thing that people trying to do is to teach how to do that, right? So there's a lot of processes, there's a lot of methodologies, people trying to teach versus provide working tools, right? And that's what we try to solve for.
Cool, gotcha.
No, that's good. Good comment, Dean. So I think that's about it. So that's Priest Guru's info is right there. Of course, you know NAASE's information at sales-engineering.org. Please check us out if you have not yet. And we will be announcing soon a mid-January next forum for NAASE. The more details on that soon, but I think it is going to focus on the manufacturing world and the manufacturing trends heading into next year in 2023. US based. I know we are focused on the USA, so I'm sorry for some of the others here that are on this call. But anyways, we'll be talking to the rest of you soon, and thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you
Alex.
very much for having us.
Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot.
Alex. Thank you, Ken.
Bye.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.